Good morning. I'm Joel Miller. I'm the interim minister here at the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. So pleased to welcome you here this morning. Talking a lot about change and transition and some unexpected change this morning. One of the things about interim ministry is it's a great opportunity for congregations to see themselves in a different way. The important role of an interim minister is not actually to become what we call the settled minister, or the minister that, or ministers, sometimes you might call more than one or a couple or something like that. But those ministers are going to be with you for a while and with whom you create some very deep long-term relationships. Interim ministers have an opportunity to create deep relationships too, but we also have because we're, as we like to say sometimes, we're pre-fired. 2 years and we go, and that's our obligation to you and to congregations we serve. I remember I was serving a congregation as one of my first interims some years ago, and this was a congregation that had the beloved red cups. Somebody's laughing. They know about the red cups, right? Mary does. And the red cups were for visitors, and visitors were encouraged to pick up the red cups when they came to visit the congregation for the first or second or third time, because then people would know to go to talk to them. And my first Sunday with the congregation, I said, well, I'm kind of a visitor here, even though I'm the interim minister. I picked up a red cup, and the guy next to me said, oh, you're new here, aren't you? And I said, yes. And he said, don't hold a red cup, nobody will talk to you. The congregation and I worked on a little bit on that culture, and we decided that maybe the red cups wasn't the best approach, but they did love the red cups, so it was hard for them to give it up. And that's part of the experience of being in an interim time, is the amount of change that comes at you sometimes can be a lot. And it's always such a satisfying and joyful thing to be engaged with a congregation that's resilient in the face of a lot of change like this one. I'm so pleased to welcome you all here who have come out on this lovely holiday weekend, and those of you who are online and attending worship this morning this way. Good morning and welcome.
Welcome, new friends and old. Welcome to our shared journey of the Spirit. We're grateful you're with us this morning. I'm Carrie Davis, and I serve on our Welcome Committee and support our religious education program. So pleased to welcome you to this morning's service. Apparently online it says I'm on the Board of Trustees as well. No longer, not on the Board of Trustees. It's not like just magically, become. All right, so back to my script here. We're a spiritual community that appreciates the importance of transitions. The transition each generation makes from birth, childhood, youth, adulthood, and elders. This is why we cherish our children, our youth, and our elders, and learn to depend on each other as we grow and change. We know that the cooing babies here, and sometimes even wailing babies, will someday be teachers, our activists for justice, or caring for us when we're hurt and healing, or singing or speaking to raise our spirits. And we cherish our elders who have built and nurtured this spiritual home for us, and the mentoring we need from them in the wisdom of their years. If children, youth, and their families have questions about our religious education programming, Nick Walwork is our Director of Religious Education. He's this weekend up in Rochester visiting family with his kids. But you can email him at nwalwork@muuf.org. Our new season of religious education programming has begun, and Nick is pleased to talk with you and answer any questions. Our choir rehearses on Thursday evenings. You can find out more from our music director, Michael Rosen, about our choir. Our AV technical director is Alex West. And our congregational administrator, Katie Julik, is here most weekdays and is happy to get your emails. And of course, Reverend Joel Miller is our interim minister. We have many announcements in our orders of service online and on paper. Today, after this morning's service at 11:45, there will be an information session on our fellowship's transition to policy governance. Also today, 12 o'clock in the meeting room, there will be a training on the AV system. So if you're interested in that, please join us to learn about operating the system. The fellowship is coordinating 2 holiday giving opportunities. Starting today, you can pick up an ornament with suggested items to be donated to holiday bags for the inmates at the Morris County Correctional Facility. The collection for these items will end on December 10th, so that's 2 weeks from now. Jean Kraft can tell you more. I don't see, she's back here. Amazing. And then on December 10th, there will be a gift and giving opportunity following service in the Great Hall with House with Heart and Peaceworks. Please support these organizations by purchasing items or making a donation. Also, starting next week, our DRE, Nick Walwork, will be leading a rainbow parenting class using the book Rainbow Parenting, Your Guide to Raising Queer Kids and Their Allies as a guide. This is a 3-class series and will run from 9 to 10 in the parlor on December 3rd, 10th, and 17th, while our kids have relationship building and connection activities upstairs in faith formation stations. So 2 things. One is, if you would like to attend the Rainbow Parenting class, please sign up on Realm or email Nick at nwalwork@muuf.org. And also, if you're not planning on attending the class, we need a few faith formation station volunteers to help out on those days from 9 to 10:15 upstairs, so that RE parents and volunteers who would like to can attend. And I have to say, I've been up there a few times in this fall season, and these kids are so much fun, so fun. All right, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Carrie. The flaming chalice is a centuries-old symbol of a people gathered in community, a people gathered to light the way toward justice. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Please stand if you'd like. We lift our hearts in thanks today for all the gifts of life, and first for peace that turns away the enmities of strife, and next the beauty of the earth, its flowers and lovely things.
I'd like to invite anybody up to the front, children, youth, young at heart, to help me tell a story for this morning's Time for All Ages. Oh, good. Somebody's coming up to help me out here. Did you all have a Thanksgiving meal with family or friends? Yeah. Yes, I did too. I'm glad you're here. Well, I'm glad you had a happy Thanksgiving. We're talking today about change. Sometimes sometimes we have so much change we just wish there wasn't so much, and sometimes the change is even really scary. I like this particular story. It comes from the Buddhist tradition, and the title of the story is The Woodcutter, the Tigers, and a Strawberry. Once upon a time, there was a woodcutter, and the woodcutter was harvesting a tree in a forest when suddenly he realized a tiger was stalking him, and he ran as fast as he could to get away from the tiger. The tiger was catching up on him, and the woodcutter saw there was a vine, and it went over the edge of a cliff, and he grabbed onto the vine and climbed down the vine just far enough away from the tiger, who was trying to get him but couldn't. The tiger looked at him hungrily like, dinner. The woodcutter looked down below him because the woodcutter wanted to get down and get away from the tiger, but bad news, there was a tiger on the ground at the bottom of the cliff below him, also looking at him like, lunch. Not a good situation. And then, to top it off, he looked at the vine he was holding, and there were two little mice nibbling on the vine, eating the vine right where it went into the rock. The woodcutter's hanging onto the vine, and then he looks over, and he sees a strawberry. And while the music played, the woodcutter picked the strawberry and ate it. And it was the most delicious strawberry he had ever eaten. That's the story. Why would the strawberry be so delicious when you're hanging between two tigers and mice nibbling on your vine? Something to think about. Thanks for helping me tell this. She's looking at it like, really? That was a story? Just stopping there? That's where the story stops. Thanks for coming up and helping me tell it. It's a cliffhanger. Thank you. A part of our practice together is a moment we call milestones, passages, and gratitudes. It is a part of our spiritual practice of paying attention, remembering to pay attention to one another, remembering to pay attention to our own selves in the moment that we come into community, and to remember what is it we're bringing in this moment. What changes? What passages? What gratitudes? I was sorry to have missed Lou Matuz's memorial on Monday, and I was delighted to find the manuscript from my colleague, Charles Laughlin, on the pulpit. So I'm going to read that when I'm going to take it with me and read it later today. Grateful for Lou's life and for him and his partner Dan Cohen. We bring also our practices of gratitude. This was Thanksgiving weekend, and hopefully we all had much to be grateful for in this time together. I will add also that I am grateful for you grateful for all of the ministry you do and are preparing to do together for a world that needs you. I invite you now into a spirit of meditation or contemplation or prayer. Spirit of life, with open faces, open hands, open souls, we prepare ourselves always for the advent of love. We prepare ourselves to welcome your presence within our connections and community. Prepare ourselves to welcome your essence among our deeds. We're making ourselves a kind of family because we are here to love and nurture our children. We make ourselves a family to listen gently to each other's joys and our sorrows. And now as we live and meet strange new challenges, unexpected challenges, help us to meet them with the spirit of Advent, to be awake to the possibility of friendship, to embrace hope and reject fear, to walk with common respect for all life, and to carry one another when we are alone or in pain. Advent itself will soon be here. Let us make ourselves ready to welcome the birth of peace and love. Amen. So be it. Blessed be.
Hello, I am Paul Firm, President of the Board of Trustees, and it's great to see you all here on this Thanksgiving weekend with family and friends and visitors. It's really wonderful to see you all. On November 12th, just 2 weeks ago, the Reverend Keith Cron presented a stirring sermon here on congregational change called The Future of Religion. It was particularly relevant for us as we search for our new settled minister. That day, I quoted member George Hayes, who had said to me, "The one constant of life is change." Well, indeed, one change we knew that was coming has been accelerated. Reverend Joel was presented in the meantime with an amazing opportunity to join our Unitarian Universalist Association and tend to congregational life and growth across New England. The board is really delighted that Reverend Joel will have a broader reach across our organization, for we have seen his impact firsthand for these last 17 months as he has worked with us as our interim minister. Now, the board is focused on 4 main goals, which you all know and probably could recite after a few of my announcements, right? They are the ministerial search, the new addition, governance, and communications. Reverend Joel has been deeply involved with us now for these 17 months in identifying and working on these topics that will lay helpful groundwork for our new settled minister. He helped us use a new process to assemble our amazing ministerial search committee and then worked with that team to build a robust project plan. Our congregational packet, which is essentially our job description and advertisement, is set to go live in just a few days, and we're really excited about this. Reverend Joel will remain with us through mid-February to assist in all these key next steps of this process. And then after Joel's departure, the search process is really fully in our congregation's hands, with final discussions between the search committee and prospective ministers. And then during candidating week, the interim minister is actually asked to leave as we work with our prospective minister, meet them, and have that exciting week of candidating. Now, the 4 months between Joel's departure and our new minister's arrival is a perfect fit for a UUA program called Transitional Ministry. This program is in place, and it's there to match congregations with experienced ministers who delight in short-term opportunities to serve congregations. So with Reverend Joel's and Reverend Keith Cron's assistant, the board has already completed the application process, which includes a description of our congregation and our goals for the spring of 2024. So our next steps will be to work with the UUA, our Unitarian Universalist Association, to identify a transitional minister who will provide us some fresh perspectives and experiences as we continue to prepare for our new settled minister. So I wanted to give you that update. We will certainly keep you posted as we work along this new timeline. And I really want to just conclude by, it is Thanksgiving. I am so thankful for Reverend Joel for sharing his wisdom and his experience with us over 20 months of interim ministry. I'm really thankful to our board. They're mostly all here today for their creativity, for their diligence, and for their extreme flexibility as this came to the fore this past week, as they both quickly and warmly congratulated Joel and then immediately started to work on this transitional ministry as our next opportunity. And then finally, I just really want to thank you all for your energy and your love that you bring to the fellowship each week. It's just a joy to be here with you all. And thank you for the trust that you place in me, in the board, in the staff, and in all of our committees. So thank you.
Please stand if you like.
One of the things I love about the earth-based spirituality of this season is the way in which darkness becomes a positive metaphor. It's understood to be opening space, to providing a womb, if you will, for the birth of the Spirit, something all of us can have within us, regardless of our gender. And so that's why I'm thinking about this lovely reading today by Jacob Trapp, who was actually a minister in Summit about 100 years ago at the Unitarian church there. If it is language that makes us human, one half of language is to listen. Silence can exist without speech, but speech cannot live without silence. Listen to the speech of others. Listen even more to their silence. To pray is to listen to the revelations of nature, listen to the meaning of events. To listen to music is to listen also to the silence and find the stillness deepened and enriched. We take our offering now, split today 50-50 with Homeless Solutions for their Night in the Cold event, and to raise awareness for our homeless neighbors in need on December 1st. 2 days ago, I sent an email to everyone on our email list, letting everyone know I would finish my ministry with you in February instead of in the end of June. I'm making a career shift. I will be working for our National Unitarian Universalist Association. The timing's unexpected for me and for you. It's a rare opportunity for me and for the Unitarian Universalist Association. I will be grateful to be working with them. Carrie reminded me this morning as we were beginning that part of the change for me too is that, as I've said to you before, it's gotten hard to leave congregations. It's hard to leave you. I got 3 more months with you. I'm not leaving yet. But I love the congregations I get to serve. It's hard to keep leaving. I won't have to keep leaving. And I'll get to live with my beloved. And for you, if this feels frustrating, I can totally understand. You've had a lot of change. A lot. And add on top of that, interim ministries already feel frustrating. Every interim minister I've talked to, every interim rabbi I've talked to, every interim priest I've talked to, all the interims will tell you, interims are frustrating experiences for anyone having to go through them. I've been a minister in 6 different congregations as an interim and another 4 in other capacities. Interim times, they're just frustrating. How did interim ministry come to be? It's just important to understand and to understand how it feels to be in an interim and what happens in an interim. It was about 50 years ago, clergy began noticing a pattern that when a congregation had been served for a long time by a minister, a rabbi, a priest, maybe 10 years, maybe 20, maybe 30 or more years, they would retire. Sometimes they would maybe even die or move on in some other kind of way. And the congregation, all of these congregations with these strong, long ministries, whether they were successful or not, they would be followed by another ministry, often by a younger clergy person who was excited about starting in this new position. They would last 2 years, and then out they went. Over and over again, out they went. Long-term ministry, short ministry in between. And then business and medical school professors were realizing the same sort of thing was happening in the corporate setting or happening in the healthcare setting. And so there was this subspecialty that developed among clergy, interim executives, interim healthcare workers. Nearly every congregation we now know, after a long or successful or even difficult ministry, the next ministry will be an interim ministry. And here's the question: is the next minister going to be an intentional interim minister or an unintentional interim minister? Just human dynamics. Thus, we began training and having ministers whose specialty was interim ministry, which is something I've been doing for 13 years. Normal for congregations or any organization really to feel anxious when the leader leaves. A congregation feels anxious. The spiritual leader is leaving. They have set the tone and served the people and the mission of the congregation. Unitarian Universalists are folks who like to get things done and make a difference. And so often when an interim minister arrives, a congregation will say to us, "Can we just get on with it? Let's just do this. Can we do it in just a year?" But when I arrive as an interim minister, I start by listening. I try to listen as much as I can. And I especially become very interested if I've heard this statement, "Can we get on with it?" I want to know what the "it" is that we're getting on with. It turns out that can be a very important conversation. So when I came 17 months ago here to Morristown, I didn't come really with a program for you or a set agenda about how we were going to do things together. First, I listened. The board, the network, the committee on ministry, and I talked, and then we spent some time trying new and different things to see how they would work here at the fellowship. Because interim times are good times to be a little playful as well as be serious about our changes. And it was in the playfulness that we came to see what goals we wanted to set, those goals that your board president, Paul Firm, talked about, communicating well, because you were very clear you wanted more communication from us, helping your search committee have a good search, get this amazing addition built with a true family fellowship hall and a kitchen. I'm so excited you're going to have a kitchen and cool non-gendered bathrooms, accessible. It's just a great, and I actually stood at the corner of it the other day and was looking out where the windows were going to be and was like, oh, this is going to be a great view. If I ever were to preach in that space, it'd be hard competition, the view, or you're going to listen to me. It made sense then, as I'm talking about interim times, to think a little bit about Advent, which begins a week from today, in the Christian tradition. Advent's a great interim ministry theme. It's the Christian spiritual practice of paying attention and making preparations for the birth of the Christ child. There are similar spiritual practices in other religions. In Judaism, there's the Shema, this prayer said at the beginning and ending of the day. And the Shema, the word Shema, as well as the title, literally means pay attention, hear. Buddhists are encouraged to practice being awake. Hinduism and Jainism encourage spiritual practices of paying attention that lead to samadhi, the ability to observe and see and understand without limit. And we have our own practices, the sharing of milestones, passages, gratitudes. Advent is about getting ready for something to happen or someone to arrive. If we're talking about it with a small a, something's going to change, and we're at the advent of that change. It fits nicely to talk about paying attention when we're in the frustrations of being in interim times, holding the possibilities, not even knowing what's in the darkness, in our own hands. Now, I want to acknowledge that you have had an extraordinary amount of change in the last few years. Kind of impressive how resilient you are as a congregation. Let me just go through the list for you. When I arrived, Reverend Allison had just been called to the large church, Unitarian Universalist church in Portland, Oregon. Stearns Matthews, your music director, was just leaving to become a new father. We were all emerging out of the worst of the COVID pandemic and trying to figure out what does life look like in a not quite post-pandemic world. You were just getting ready to decide whether to launch this final stage of this amazing capital project you've been working on for over 10 years. You've got this gorgeous parking lot, new roof, new main entry, cool new AV technology. Now this amazing space that's going up here. You're going to do some amazing ministry out of that. And as you were doing all of this, some local politics meant that you had to endure some hateful attacks, actually, trying to prevent you from finishing this project. You got through that. And now, as Paul Firm reported to you, your leadership and I are finishing a project your leaders began 10 years ago to update your governance, something we call policy governance. We're also very much focused on supporting your search for your next called minister. Your Committee on Ministry and I have been working a lot on how to live the right relations promise. And we just want to communicate well. So much change. It's a lot of change. It's more change than I've ever seen a congregation do at once, ever. So if you have felt anxious, or if you're feeling frustrated in the moment, like what are we doing now? What's going on? And why are you leaving a little early, Joel? I totally appreciate that and understand. You've had a lot to pay attention to. Sort of like one of those jugglers with all the plates and doing balls and everything. And I think of your changes, all of the change you've been, and it's almost like you've had this super long Advent. Advent's usually 4 weeks. And if you get one of those calendars from Europe where they have chocolates for each day, to remind you, you'd get 4 weeks. You get chocolate if you're practicing that Advent. Your Advent for what you've been doing feels like you've had 52 weeks of an Advent. Maybe you got chocolate every day because you guys are really cool. But on the other hand, it's a long time to wait for Christmas and the presents, right? So when I say how much I admire your commitment to your fellowship, I'm not just giving you puffery. I really honestly don't think a lot of congregations would even make it through a 52-week Advent, so to speak. All of this change. You're going to have a heck of a Christmas and an amazing New Year when you get to the end of whatever this Advent is. And I think it's so delightful that, as Paul Firm described, you have a great opportunity in this little transition within all of your transitions. As I depart a little early, you have an opportunity to see another style of ministry before you call your next settled minister. I'm glad that this can be an opportunity for you. And knowing and seeing how you've been resilient, you can make it an opportunity. And that's very cool. Now, if you're a visitor here for the first time or visiting with family, the sermon may seem a little odd. I'm not leaving yet. I'm still here for another almost 3 months. There are these things every once in a while we call interim sermons. And it's this real opportunity to talk with a congregation about its changes and talk with a congregation, that being that sits before me, that is, yes, all of these amazing individuals, but is this amazing community as well. But as I described them, I was thinking, what would I see if I were a visitor here for the first time? Well, I do want you to know that along with their tenacity through a lot of change, I know these folks are lovingly compassionate with one another. They're deeply committed also to justice work in the larger community. They're feisty, usually in good ways. Sometimes they're a little bossy. But that feistiness, it's been very helpful for them as they've gotten through that almost 10 years of so much change. I highly recommend them to you. They know why they are here. And you might be part of the reason they are here. There are a lot of changes going on in this world around us. The environmental challenges that humanity has to acknowledge as a species. A world with a lot of economic stresses as the rich get richer on the backs of middle class and poor folks. And these days in which we see the rise of dictators, they promise safety, but they lie. They deliver instead violence and death. Scary times, sometimes heartbreaking times. I find myself forgetting to breathe because I worry about my children and I worry about my people. But these religious teachings about paying attention, they've been important to me, helpful to me. In calling me to pay attention, I find myself asking over and over again this essential question: what do I love so much that I will live for it? What do I live for? And that is truly, I think, the essential question of Advent. It's the light that a person in an earth-based religion holds out a light in the darkness, not to defy the darkness, but to remember that in the birth of the darkness, we do hold on to that which enlightens us and calls us to love. What shall I live for? Unitarian Universalists might be pagan or earth-based. We might be Christian or Muslim, Jew or Hindu, atheist, or none of the above, or something I haven't mentioned. But as Unitarian Universalists, in addition to any of those, it's not enough to ask only, what shall I live for? We also know that we ask this question, what shall we live for? So Advent specifically begins the story of Jesus. Unitarian Universalists tell this story a little differently than Muslims do or Christians do. Jesus' birth was the arrival of a Jewish rabbi, a teacher and rabbi who would bring an end to the old world and work to bring in a new world. The old world this teacher sought to overthrow was the world where the emperor of imperial Rome was the dictator over everyone. This teacher was bringing a world where women, where the poor, where children, where people with diseases were also powerful and beloved. Empire hated this and still does. Empire sees women as being for the making of children, and children who would become the raw materials for imperial ambitions, whether they be soldiers or servants. And in defiance of this vision, Advent is the story of a baby, and a baby whose birth is such a powerful experience that it begins a revolution in and of itself, a revolution bringing the end of the imperial world, a world in which a wealthy few benefit from the oppression of many. I've been reluctant to use the word Messiah. I'm not sure whether we would be replacing one kind of autocrat with another with the word. I always struggle with those who lead empires, those who will promise us a world of safety and order as a sure thing, as if our lives could really be fulfilled in such a strange world where our hearts will never be broken and our comforts will never be challenged. I'm a dad. I'd love to be a grandfather sometime, just if my kids are watching. But I want safety and order. I want to protect my children. I want to protect all of my children, including the ones that are here. So I'm not saying there's something wrong with safety and order, but I'm dreaming of a world for our children that is open and beautiful, a world in which they are cherished, in which they are fed, in which they can speak and listen freely. Advent first calls us to be awake and aware, and then calls us to prepare ourselves as best as we can for the work of peace and justice that we dream of. And that's what I've seen happening here in this congregation. It makes sense that this congregation would invest so much, so generously, in making a beautiful place for the Spirit, a beautiful place where children can continue to grow and find powerful and meaning in their lives. A community that seeks to build a world where the rebellion is a peaceful and beautiful one, kind of like the story of Advent, where a poor, brown, Middle Eastern child is born in a barn among animals. And in the act of being born, begins building an anti-empire, an empire of animals, of mothers and fathers, of shepherds and other workers. And together, They live a nonviolent rebellion against an empire of domination and oppression. People who have so much courage that they can't help but live this vision most deeply. That's a heck of a story, and I think in many ways your story as well. One of the things that I know as an interim minister that I've seen congregations where ministers come and go over time, congregations endure. You endure as a people. You have been and continue to be a very resilient community. I'm looking forward to the just shy of 3 months we have left to do some work together, governance, and get more done on this building project and find our way, help you find your way into your next chapter as a congregation. It's an exciting time. I'm proud to have been a part of it, and I'm looking forward to the time we have left. And the work you do for the birth of the spirit of life and love. Yes, let's kneel along with the others in the fields and the forests and in the barnyard and cherish that which leads us to that life and love and justice. May these neighbors next to us be those who will lead us into that new life, that rebellion for peace and love. You've been on that journey. You will continue. I look forward over the years to seeing where you go and how you do it.
Please stand if you'd like.
Sunrise.
take your beautiful flame, this flame of community, and your flames of love and passion into the world that needs it, into a world where others are looking for community and love and a congregation, a place maybe where you could actually be spiritual and be faithful to who you are. You have a great gift as a community. Go and take it into the world. It needs it. I'm so grateful to be a part of this community. See you next Sunday.